I'm Gary Nickerson.
And I'm Quinn Taggart.
And this is Outside My Window. The Dalhousie School of Nursing celebrated its 25th anniversary in 2020. But the Yarmouth School of Nursing was established long before that. Then it became the Dalhousie School of Nursing Yarmouth campus. Its very humble beginnings go back to 1913, a year after the original Yarmouth Hospital opened. Now today, the campus delivers its programs in a very unique setting, right here in Yarmouth, that offers students a real sense of community and a wonderful learning environment, of course, located right next to the Yarmouth Regional Hospital. Outside My Window is on location. We've been invited to the Dalhousie School of Nursing Yarmouth campus for our conversation. We have three guests: Assistant Professor and Site Administrator Dr. Shelley Cobbett, and Professors Joanne Newell and Jackie Hartigan-Rogers. Welcome.
Thank you. It's our pleasure to be here.
And thank you for having us here. That's wonderful. This school, as I mentioned, has such a rich and very interesting history. So whoever wants to start, tell us about those early beginnings.
Well, thank you, Gary. We're going to do a bit of a tag teaming here. So the information we're about to share with you was actually published in an 82 Years of History and Transition booklet that our previous director, Marty Amiro, made prior to our transition from diploma to the Dalhousie School of Nursing program.
So I'd like to begin by just reading the opening paragraph that Marty wrote. The School of Nursing began in 1913, 1 year after the opening of the first Yarmouth Hospital. The hospital was an 8-bed cottage hospital that was staffed by the superintendent, Miss Watson, 2 additional nurses, and a maid. The staff lived in the hospital, and the round-the-clock patient demands were crushing. The solution was to hire pupil nurses. Miss Watson put an ad in the local paper, and 4 women applied. The pupils were given free room and board in exchange for their labor. For 2 years, their education consisted of learning how to care for patients at the bedside. There were no classes, and exams were oral and given at the bedside.
As the 1930s unfolded, the school began to become more structured, and lectures were scheduled for students in the evening. They worked 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week, with 1 afternoon off on the weekend to go to church. The classes were given by the doctors. It was many decades before the school had any structures as such. Back in the mid-1930s, being a probationer had additional connotations. One of the responsibilities involved walking to the post office a half a mile away, morning and night, to pick up and deliver the hospital mail.
There was a wonderful history written, a booklet that was published, Yarmouth Regional Hospital School of Nursing, 82 years of history in transition, and that's a key word we'll get into. But life as a student nurse back then, and I want to clarify, none of you were there at that time, but this booklet certainly talks about a pretty tough life for student nurses. Can you give us a sense of that from the history booklet?
We sure can, Gary. And just to follow up, if your readers your listeners are interested in an in-depth history, the Learning Center at the Yarmouth Hospital has Marty Amiro's master's thesis, which is the history in depth of the School of Nursing from its inception until the mid-50s. So that's available if you're waiting in the hospital or visiting a patient and want to take it out and read the full history. You're welcome to. Certainly in the 60s, that's when things changed in relation to the educational program for students. At that time, the school offered a 3-year program. They were registered in 3 classes at any given time. The second-year students, however, were away on affiliations, and the school has a strong history of affiliations with other hospitals. They did affiliations, meaning clinical placement in specialty areas at the Grace Maternity, which is now the IWK Health Center, at the Nova Scotia Hospital in Dartmouth for their mental health nursing, and the Children's Hospital in Halifax, as well as the sanatorium that was in Kentville. The life of the student in the 60s was certainly affected strongly by the military and the religious roots of nursing at that time. Status and hierarchy, though, were very evident. Students were instructed to stand every time a physician entered the nurse's station and to make sure they were the last person to get on an elevator and the last person to get off. And certainly I remember even in my early training days as a diploma nurse that we were also instructed to, if we were charting at the nurse's station when a physician came to the unit, that we were to stand in case they wanted our chair. The first 6 months of training for the students in the 60s and early 70s were a probationary period where the students had to prove their worth. They couldn't wear a cap until they proved their worth. They were called probies, and it was part of the traditional student nurse's uniform at the time. If they were successful in the probationary period, the occasion was marked by a candlelight capping ceremony where they then received their cap and they were awarded official student status. So that's really changed from then to now as well.
As part of student nurses orientation, do they learn about the history of the school?
Absolutely. So one of the nursing courses that they are introduced to in semester 3 of our program, our first nursing courses, is called Foundation of Nursing Practice. And that very first class, we go back through the history of nursing to highlight. And then again, emphasizing that learning from nursing history is critical to advancing the profession. It certainly sheds light on the profession and the complexity and the diversity of it. And certainly also the contributions to our development of our professional identity as registered nurses, and provides perspective on the transformation of nursing practice.
And Jackie is the course professor for that course, even though her retirement's coming up, which we're all mourning and putting out of our head. She is going to stay on as a sessional and continue to begin that professional socialization with our new students. So we're really thankful for that.
How has things evolved over the years when you think about the current staffing as things are right now? You've got a lot of, I want to be politically correct when I said it, but you have a lot of older folks kind of handling and keeping the lights on. Are there younger folks coming up through the ranks that are going to be able to kind of take on the role and continue in the same theme as you've established?
That's a funny question, Quinn, because we were talking about it earlier, and I said, well, I'm proud of the fact that the three of us have been here a very long time, and they said, well, we don't want people to think that we're all old here. Jackie started in 1987, I started in 88, and Joanne started in 89, so we have been here. But I'm thrilled to say we're starting already to refresh our faculty. With the increased seats that we were announced a couple of years ago, which we'll get into a bit later, we were given more faculty positions. So we have recently hired 2 new faculty people. We also have a current faculty person that is considering doctoral studies, because it's important that the site administrator be prepared at the doctoral level in order to enhance scholarship and research within the area. So we're starting. The pool of applicants were phenomenal when we posted for our lecture position. We had 9 applicants, and we shortlisted 3, and they were all equally fantastic to be in this position. So there's a lot of interest out there, and I think there hasn't been turnover here for so many years. A lot of our past students, they saw what the environment was like when they were students here. They've gone on to do master's degrees and are waiting for positions. So I'm not concerned of refreshing the faculty and staff here.
Now, you were poised to celebrate 25 years of being Dalhousie School of Nursing then, but of course we all know what happened to that. So you haven't had an opportunity to really celebrate that anniversary, but just take us back a little bit and give us a sense of how the Yarmouth campus was actually selected to be part of the Dalhousie School of Nursing.
I can start, and so in the late 80s, our Marty Amiro, and again, she was our mentor. I think I can speak for all of us as well as many faculty. She was a real futuristic thinker, a problem solver, and did a needs assessment in the late 80s to look at the Tri-County nursing population. The majority of those nurses in Digby, Yarmouth, Shelburne hospitals and our long-term care centers were from the Diploma School of Nursing. So she was able to provide a case that if the school closed, we're going to have recruitment and retention issues because we're at Southwest, the end of the province. So she, in the early 90s, offered, in consultation with Department of Health and the then Yarmouth Regional Hospital Board of Directors, offered current faculty. We had 13 baccalaureate prepared faculty teaching in the diploma program. We were all offered tuition to do a master's degree because that would have been the minimum educational requirement to have a baccalaureate degree here. At the same time, the Canadian Nurses Association was touting the entry to practice by the year 2000 must be a university education. So she very early in 1990s with Mr. McCachran, who was our CEO at the time, proposed to Dalhousie a collaborative relationship. And then for the next 3 probably years, we planned that, and I'll talk a bit about partnerships later between Dalhousie, Acadia, and St. Anne University, and that's how the program came to be. Her vision that if we didn't get on board first, somebody else was going to, and her perseverance with the university indicating that we were able to increase the quality of our education and offer a baccalaureate program fully on site. Anything to?
Well, I was just going to say that I think Marty did such an incredible job in terms of recruitment and retention. That is probably why we're still sitting here today, because at the time when we first came in, there was a really big turnover of nursing faculty at the School of Nursing. And anyway, she supported us immensely and just made us, like, it's a place that we enjoy working and want to be here and have stayed.
We feel very fortunate. Actually, you can see Marty on the wall here in our faculty lounge. She had a huge impact into all of us as educators and even the students who had the privilege of being educated by her. She made an impression.
Absolutely.
So at the time, you offered a diploma program in nursing, but how did the Yarmouth campus at that point compare to other campuses across the country? And then after Dalhousie, the Dalhousie partnership came into play, was that the standard for other schools of nursing across the country? Is there like a bar that has to be met there? I hope I'm being clear.
Oh, you're being absolutely clear. There's a very high bar there, Quinn, and we've often talked about it with our leadership within our province and at other universities. This collaborative arrangement is unique right now, and it has been since our inception in '95. The majority of collaborative programs across our country are what they call a 2-and-2, so that the college or the old diploma site does the first couple of years of the program, then they go to the main university for the next couple of years. The difference with our program right from the get-go is that would have caused hardships for students living in Southwest Nova Scotia to do 2 years here and then have to relocate to the city. So we, at the time, we had a transition committee that worked very hard. And it was actually, one was led by Marty Amiro and the other was led by Martha Muse Davis at the time. And we worked on transitions plans, and that's when we developed the partnerships with Acadia University and University St. Anne. Those 2 universities, and we continue that partnership, they provide professors on site for all of our non-nursing courses in the first 2 semesters. So that's our psychology, biochem, stats, etc. So because of that arrangement, we were able to do the complete program here, and that is unique.
So let's talk a little bit about the programs that the school offers currently. Can you elaborate a little bit on how that goes?
I can. We offer 1 degree, the Bachelor of Science in Nursing, and there are 2 programs within that degree program. One is the traditional direct entry program, which is for those students either coming out of high school or that do not have previous university education. Up until 2016, that was a 4-year, 120 credit hour Bachelor of Science in Nursing. In 2016, we decreased that to a 3-year, but it's still 120 credit hours. So we do the exact same amount of programming over 3 years. The difference is that in the 4-year program, students were off June, July, and August. In the new program, students study for 3 months, they're off a month, study for 3 months, off a month, year-round. So we're able to offer the program over 3 years, which increases their potential earning 1 year earlier, as well as decreases living expenses for the 4 years. Prior to developing the new program, we did an extensive data collection and assessment with the current students and some of our new grads and said, what do you think about this? Because we've always touted the fact to our students, thou shalt not work when in nursing school because it's so intense. But the reality is, and the reality has been the last 10 years, that students have to work. So their response to us was, we're working anyway, so for us to be able to graduate in 3 years and not 4 is a real plus. The second program we have is called an advanced standing program, which requires a minimum of 30 credit hours of university education in certain subjects, which Joanne can talk about a bit later when we talk admission. And then they join our direct entry in second year, and they do that program in 2 years. The advanced standing and direct entry students do the exact same curriculum from semester 3 to semester 8.
So you mentioned about the potential cost savings for living expenses and so on. Is there a residence here, or are people just having to fend for themselves in the community?
No, there is a residence here, and our residence, we also find that an advantage, Quinn, because it's $425 a month for a student who wants a double room alone, and $375 a month for a single room. That monthly fee includes a huge shared kitchen. It includes a large shared living area with cable, internet, etc. We do have shared bathrooms, but they're stall-type bathrooms, so it's not as if they're all open. And we also have a resident assistance program. So if you were living in residence, because 24 hours, 7 days a week, students are here, so we have residence assistants, which are kind of supervisors. And if applying for the residence assistance program, you get free room and board. Free room, not board. With the kitchen facilities, most students do their own meals, but we also have a cafeteria that they're welcome to have their meals at as well. So we have 2 full floors of residence, 3rd and 4th, and we're just refurbishing back 2nd floor to residence space as well because of the housing shortage and crisis here. And it's very cost effective.
Well, I was going to ask that. How does that cost compare to other university programs?
It's minimal. So if you take the 10, and we also, once a student starts semester 3 in our nursing program, we don't make our students to move out at the end of the term, every term. Once they move in semester 3, they have their room for the complete program, which is different as well as other universities. So if you look at but we don't charge them for that month either. So if we look at 9 months, they're looking at about $4,000 a year for residents, as opposed to $10,000 to $14,000 for residences elsewhere.
How many seats currently available at the Yarmouth campus?
We currently have 33 seats. We had 25 up until a couple of years ago, and then we expanded 8 seats. And we are currently in collaboration and negotiation to see what our clinical capacity is for a potential of even more seats at our campus.
We talked about the learning environment, and what does it mean to nursing students or potential nursing student candidates to have this quality of a nursing school right here in Yarmouth, and perhaps in their own hometown?
Well, I think I'll answer that question. Many students who study here enjoy the small class sizes, which are quite similar to what they are accustomed to from their local high schools. And studying close to their homes allows students to have the support of their family and of their friends. This is an intense program, a very intense program, and being supported by family and friends is truly valued by the learner.
So our Yarmouth Hospital Foundation is amazing. We have a true collaborative partnership with them. Right now, they offer 9 scholarships for our students. The Hospital Auxiliary offers 3 bursaries for students in their last year, kind of just get over that final semester hump. But one of the probably most exciting innovations, and I believe, and I'm going to say it's probably the only one in the country, is our Nova Scotia Health. Nova Scotia Health has provided 8 scholarships called Growing Rural Nurses. These 8 scholarships, there are 5 scholarships which cover full tuition for a baccalaureate degree to our direct entry students, about $50,000, and the other 3 are for advanced standing students or late entry students at $30,000. Basically, it covers the full tuition for the whole degree. They're only available at the Yarmouth campus. They're not available anywhere else in the province. And in return, the student is guaranteed a permanent full-time position. They must sign a return of service for 2 years at either Yarmouth, Digby, or Shelburne hospitals. It's a win-win for students. It's a win-win for service and for us.
And I just wanted to add as well, there's a number of Dalhousie University scholarship opportunities available for African, Nova Scotian, African descent students, specifically that are awarded through the entrance program. And there are also First Nations and Indigenous Black students entrance scholarships for students who identify as Indigenous, Black, African, Nova Scotian, as well as students who identify as First Nations, Inuit, or Métis from Atlantic Canada. And Imhotep Legacy Academy, or better known as ILA, offers university students an opportunity to complement their studies and supplement their finances through summer research scholarships or through summer employment. And one of our undergraduate nursing students, Toby Adeoye, who's currently within our semester 5 of our program, applied and was selected as a recipient of the 2023 Legacy Academy Faculty of Health Summer Research Scholarship beginning August the 1st to August 31st. And so we were able to assist Toby in the application process by connecting her with Megan Ryan. And Megan Ryan is our program advisor, African Nova Scotian, African descent student cohort within the Dalhousie University School of Nursing, to ask for assistance in connecting with Dr. Keisha Jeffries, who begins her appointment with the School of Nursing in July, and she agreed to be Toby's the student's research supervisor and her mentor. So we're very excited about that.
As we've talked, certainly things have changed. Society has changed over the years, and how we respect people. So I want to ask you about a number of issues, and of course, diversity, inclusion, accessibility. Well, I came in a wheelchair and was very accessible for me, which is wonderful. So can you talk about all of those things in terms of how that relates to the students and how students are, welcomed into the School of Nursing?
Sure. So I just want to share something that we've been doing during the past year. We've held 3 what we call Explore Dalhousie University School of Nursing Yarmouth campus events with the Tri-County Centre for Education, or TCRC, high school students, with our most recent event was just held May 15th. And this event was specifically designed for African, Nova Scotian, African descent, and Indigenous students from TCRC high schools. So we had 14 students from YCMHS and Drumlin Heights Consolidated, along with 2 of the program coordinators, the coordinator of African Nova Scotian Education and Mi'kmaq Services Education Coordinator, and 2 student support workers attended the event. And just want to tell you a little bit more about our Explore Yarmouth campus sessions. It includes an informal presentation and an information session related to our Dalhousie BSCN program and our campus. And the session includes interactive activities. We have an icebreaker, a group art-based activity within the classroom, and it allows students to meet the site administrator, to meet the faculty and the teaching team at our campus. And this is followed by a tour and hands-on session within our Clinical Learning Simulation Center, where students rotate through interactive activities like hand washing, making a bed, interacting with our simulation mannequins. And students also, during this session, had an opportunity to hear a student in our program share their perceptions of their educational journey thus far in the program. So the session provides high school students within a safe and respectful environment. The sessions end with a pizza lunch, accompanied by drawing some student names for special prizes. And the overall response, we have to say, to participation in the sessions has been extremely positive. And we are currently working with the program coordinators within the Tri-County School Board to expand our sessions to include more schools within the Tri-County area.
So I'd like to just jump in case any of your listeners are interested and work at high schools or even junior highs and are interested in arranging a Explore Our Campus trip. Just give us a call at 902-742-3542, extension 1213, and we can schedule something. We love to have visitors to our campus, and we're always happy to showcase to future nurses.
That's great. I think that'll probably generate some interest. I know there's a lot of schools that entertain that hands-on, face-to-face kind of thing. Certainly with the pandemic past us, we're back to that face-to-face stuff, which is really a whole lot better than Zoom.
As Jackie said, we just had one on Monday, and it was interesting as they came up from our simulation lab. One of the students said to me, because in the hand washing, we actually spray their hands with germs, like pretend germs. Then they wash their hands, and then they put their hands under ultraviolet light. She said, I cannot believe the amount of germs that were still on my hands after. So hand washing is a skill, and it's not just stick your hands under the water. So I'm sure that young lady will think about that every time she washes her hands.
If the pandemic taught us nothing, it was hand sanitization and wash your hands. Stuff we should have been doing, all along. Flu season, at the beginning of the flu season, it's one of the big things that people tout out as being helped to prevent, but people were a little lackadaisical on it.
Well, Quinn, and I would say nurses have been doing it all along since Florence Nightingale's time, when she discovered that if her and her nurses washed their hands, they decreased the postpartum infection or after birth infection on the unit. So we knew about masks and hand washing. We're just glad everybody else is doing it now too.
So Shelley, the pandemic really kind of kicked everybody in the shorts when it came to every service. But certainly as a school of nursing, you've got people that are here in residence, you've got classrooms, the high schools went to e-learning. But what did it really do for you, and how did that affect the students?
Well, it kicked us in the shorts too, Quinn. March of 2020 will forever be ingrained in my brain. We were directed to shut down by Dalhousie. Dalhousie everything closed. So our students had to move home. But we were also directed to continue programming. So we have a face-to-face program that within 48 hours had to deliver online. Difficult delivering nursing theory and skills online, very difficult. We worked, I'm going to say 24/7, but we probably did sleep a couple of hours each day for a couple of months for something that was going to be temporary. We're going to be closed for a month or two. That was our thinking. By the summer, we realized that wasn't going to happen. So again, I can't say enough about this faculty and the Halifax faculty. They collaborated. We combined students together to increase our resources. They spent many hours learning new programs, new online simulations at the flip of a dime. Our associate director said to me one day that what we've learned right now is the art of pivoting. And I use that term all the time because we pivoted every day, sometimes twice, 3 times a day. As new regulations came out, new policies came out, new guidelines came out, we were not in the know about COVID as a virus, even though it's been around for 20 odd years. COVID-19 was not. So we learned a lot, we collaborated a lot, we missed each other a lot. We all got eye strain from computers. Luckily, CASA had some laptops left. I was able to mobilize and take all they had for faculty to work from home. We had some students that we also helped with because not every student had a computer. And then we learned online as best we could. Now, it wasn't perfect. You can read all about it, though. We did do a research study right away. We started in June of 2020, provincial, and it's been published. It was actually 2-part publication article because we got so much data from our students and faculty across the province. But one of the highlights, and I say this recently, the Nova Scotia Association Nurses Association just created. We finally have an association for the registered nurse and licensed practical nurse and nurse practitioner voice. And I was an invited speaker there a few weeks ago. And what I stress, and I continue to stress, is we cannot forget the efficiencies we learned with COVID. Not only as an educational institution, but as a healthcare. is there one person out there that does not like the lab booking now, that does not enjoy the fact they don't have to line up and wait for an hour and a half in the morning or get there early to get a number? That's an efficiency that we learned during the pandemic, and we have many examples of those in education. But we did miss each other tremendously, and we missed our students. So what did we do? Our students in their physical assessment class, which we did online, can you imagine? Each of the students did a 30-second clip of practicing physical assessment at home on their dog, their cat, their chicken, their pig, their cow, and they fused this all together and sent it to the faculty. So that was an amazing connection. So of course we had to do that back. So what we did is we all did the same thing, a 20 or 30-minute clip about our home office. Like, this is where we live, work, sleep, eat, and play now, and send it back to them. So we tried to keep that closeness going through the online environment. But the highlight for me, and I think for most of us, is that in February of last year, and I'm sure you're aware of this because it was all over the news, our long-term care system was in a crisis in this province. They were short workers and they needed help. The government and the seniors secretariat came to the 3 universities as well as our Nova Scotia Community College and said, "Can you help us?" And that was on a Friday. By Monday, we had a plan. So what we did was we put out a volunteer call to all of our students, and there was a lot of miscommunication going on in that time, not only with this call, but during the pandemic, the early phases, and even as we start to emerge from it. So we put a call out to our students because normally they would go to an acute care setting in March during that time of year in the semester they were in. So we put an offer out to them and said, long-term care needs you now, and the government is asking for a call for action to students. Those that are in a position, because they were home too, right? They had kids at home and partners and families and parents. If you're in a position to pivot right now and start long-term care in, I think we had 10 days, let us know, because our seniors need us. I'm going to get emotional because our campus, every single student rose to that call of action, and the majority of students across this province rose to that call of action. So we mobilized groups the last 2 weeks of February into long-term care, which were welcomed with open arms, and then also in March in different areas throughout our province. So it was I know it was tough for students because they had their schedule. It was tough for clinical placement because we had to rearrange everything. We also, as professors, offered for the volunteers, so those students that couldn't for whatever reason, we would still teach, so we would double teach everything during that semester. The research coming out of that was led by Professors Paula Dion and Lisa Doucette here, told us that students were proud to be called to action, and they were proud to help the government. Even though it was a very confusing time for them, they felt they really didn't have a voice, and things happened quickly. The bottom line was that they felt proud to be a nursing student.
What are some of the things that you learned or had taken away during the time with COVID that have stuck around? So, I mean, obviously the booking at the blood work, hey, that's a great thing. I thoroughly enjoy it, other than the fact that now I have to be a little bit more cognizant about when I'm going to go for my blood work. I can't just show up and grab a number. But what other things did you learn from all of that you've kind of kept?
Well, I think in nursing education, we've learned that there's more than one way to do things. And we had professors here creating escape rooms online, trying to make, because you can't just sit there and look at a computer and hear somebody talk on Zoom all day. So we had escape rooms, and we had games and Kahoots, and just trying to be so creative with the learning that had to take place, because our main goal was to ensure that progression of our students continued on the path that they were on.
We also learned, like Shelley said, to be more efficient. We always used to have a registration day here at the School of Nursing. It's like a one-shop shop. You come on this particular day, you register on this particular day, and some students had to travel from Liverpool or Bridgewater or wherever to come to this registration day. we have learned how to do it effectively and efficiently online. So students don't have to get in their car and travel down here. We pick an appropriate time and that's conducive, and students can do it from their home. So there's a lot of efficiencies that came out of this as well as, you know, as Shelley mentioned, some creative ways of teaching a very personable program. So.
Yeah, I think another great thing that came out of Dalhousie, our learning platform, all of our courses are on what is called Brightspace. And the support went completely online, and they've stayed online. So we can drop into the support room anytime we want, and we do that many, many times. And you know, during that time frame, but now it continues, and they're in there on the weekends. So if you're trying to figure out something, whether it's related to a test or installing a video or whatever it is, you know, it's opened up that door to having that support at your fingertips.
I think the other thing is, too, we don't dread storm days anymore because we can still, as long as we have internet and power, we can still teach because almost every course has been online at some point over the last 3 years.
Absolutely. And also our meetings, our faculty meetings that we used to travel up for 3 hours and 3 hours coming back for us have been online and continue to be online. So that's
As long as you have a TV, you can do face-to-face.
Well, and I think we've become a bit more flexible too with maybe our single parents in our program. If their child's sick, there's always the opportunity to jump on Teams into our classrooms. So all of our classrooms are equipped with monitors now, and we've always had the internet in there, but with the monitors. So we don't make a practice of it because there's something lost with educating online, you know, but if there's a really important class and my daughter, for example, I don't have a daughter, but if my daughter's sick and I can't be there, I can at least listen in so I don't miss out on that important content. So lots of efficiencies, Quinn, yeah.
Now, you mentioned simulation lab and mannequins and the like. How has technology over the years helped, hindered, made it easier, whatever phraseology you want to use, the nursing profession?
It's hindered when technology doesn't work the way you want it to, but it's definitely helped. So we'll go back to our first experience, and Quinn, you'll remember this well because you were our programmer. So in the early 90s, when we had first started, we didn't have computers. We had a Gestetner machine. So we'd write all our tests by hands, put a stencil on, crank it through. Our exams were typed by, we had 3 administrative positions or secretaries at the time. And so we were really tired of marking 500 question exams for our classes. So we actually, I had known you from high school, contacted Quinn and came up and sat down, and you created a computer program that we couldn't bubble scan or electron, but at the time, so we would, our students would write their exams. We would sit down in the room and do A, B, C, D. One person would say the student answers, the other would enter, but then we could run the program and get the item difficulty and discrimination, which is part of item analysis. So that was our first, and we were all excited about that, like really excited. But at the end of, it took us, I think, 3 days for data entry. We were all kind of walking around going A, B, C, D. And B's and D's sounded the same near the end, but that was really the start. And then since then, we do very little by hand right now.
I also think back to when we would deliver our classes, and it would be through transparency. So we would use markers to write out our transparencies, and if we were trying to be a little bit creative, draw pictures and put, you know, pieces of paper in between so they wouldn't get smudged, so we wouldn't have to redo them. So yeah, we've come a long, long way.
I think our simulation lab too is top of the line, and Shelley's going to speak to that as well. But the mannequins that you see in the lab today are very realistic, and they do just about anything that a normal person would do. And so students get to experience that in the lab prior to going to the clinical area, and it's phenomenal what these mannequins can do. Yeah,
And incredible to have the opportunity to learn in a safe environment first, and that, you know, we have an amazing teaching team that offers and sets up that safe environment. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully when we're done, you have time that we can go downstairs and take a look and meet our simulation mannequins. You'll see all different ages, all different ethnicities. Our older mannequins are structured like older people. Our kids, where we have babies that are premature, we have babies that are post-mature. They talk. We can even do some bilingual programming with them. It's absolutely amazing. We just had a huge financial infusion from Dalhousie University as well as Nova Scotia Health for our Simulation Learning Center, and we're extremely pleased with what we have. Heather Colstring is our simulation lab coordinator, and she's been with us for almost 2 years now, and she has taken that center under the way she calls it her center now, and it's evident, it's organized. It always was, but now it's come up to the 2023, so it's enviable, and our team here are all nationally certified simulation instructors, either completed or in progress. And we've done things a lot differently since that certification. So I think the adage is, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. So our simulation programming is, I'm going to say, next to none here right now, as well as we hire standardized patients to come in. So if you're ever looking for something to do, get on our roster, because there are just some things that we want real patients in our labs for. And every semester we have standardized patients come in that the students work with. So they learn the theory. They enact it in our labs with our mannequins. They work with actors, actresses, people, and then they progress into the hospital and long-term care centers and community agencies.
So at what point are the student nurses transition from the learning environment here at the campus into the hospital, or is that an ongoing?
It's ongoing. What's been unique the last few years, our semester 1 and 2 students are all non-nursing courses, but they are able to apply for a paid position in the hospital as a support aide. So that gives them a sense of what nursing's all about, what hospitals are all about, and care. And then in semester 3 of our program, when the nursing courses start, every semester has what we call a clinical integration. And in the first semester, that is 110 hours between the lab and hospital, third semester, and fourth semester. Our fifth and sixth semester are 220 hours each, and our seventh semester is 200 hours.
And then our last semester, semester 8, is 440 hours. And right now, our semester 8 students are preceptored with a registered nurse for the months of May, June, and July. At the end of July, they are then eligible, once they complete their clinical internship, we call it, because they're working alongside of a registered nurse, doing the same shifts as the registered nurse, their preceptor. And once they complete that learning requirement, they are then eligible to write their licensing exam.
And I just wanted to add, the clinical placements can be out of province, they can be at the Halifax Infirmary, they can be in Central Zone, they can be at the IWK or South Shore, Valley, you name it, it is.
And in the past, we've had international placements, and we're just getting back to them. So we've had students go to Queen Margaret in Scotland, for example, for a clinical placement. And again, COVID kind of put a kibosh on international and out-of-province placements, but we are, as Jackie said, getting back to those very valuable learning opportunities for our students who choose to do that.
Obviously, you all have seen many students come, graduate, move on to their careers in nursing, and I know this is a big question, but, what impressions are you left as you communicate with these students while they're here, and I'm sure many of them keep in touch afterwards?
Well, speaking for myself, and I know my colleagues feel the same way, when we see our learners graduate, write their licensing exam, and work in the clinical area, it's nothing but pride. They are entering the healthcare setting, today at a very challenging time, but they're ready. They're ready to accept that challenge, and we see them, even go back to school to further education. We also see them move from, their current position, whatever that might be, and some of them take different jobs as they go through their career. And so it's really nice to see their journey. Some of them take administration roles. Some of them come here to the school to teach, which is also very rewarding to see. So pride comes to my mind very strongly that to see them in the clinical area and to see them working is wonderful.
And it is amazing to see their names as a preceptor to our students, that many times our students are being precepted by our former graduates. So it is definitely a win-win. And definitely the sense of pride. I totally agree with Joanne.
It's like a family when you see your child graduate. Because we do get close relationships. We have open door policies. We have small classes. We know our graduates by name. Now, granted, after 35 years, we might be forgetting some of those names, but we proudly display every graduate from the Yarmouth School of Nursing has been displayed up until 95, and they're downstairs in now Dalhousie classes as well. So every graduating class gets put on our wall.
Nursing, of course, is a very challenging profession. Rewarding, I know many nurses, friends, current nurses and retired nurses. Over the years, and I know it's another tough one to answer, but, why do young people decide to get into a career like nursing beyond the learning curve and the difficulties and challenges facing a career in healthcare?
Well, actually, this is a question that I asked in the very first day of class in the Foundation of Nursing Practice course. And generally, the responses are, a lot of the responses are that they want to help people. That is the most popular. But they've also experienced either as being a patient themselves, interacting with a nurse, or a family member, again, some type of personal experience within the healthcare setting. Certainly, I would be remiss to say that income isn't part of it now. And I'm not saying that everybody uses that that gives that answer as the response, but I have seen that, and I think that's being honest. Our starting salaries for nurses, registered nurses, can be approximately $35 an hour, and then that would increase each year with experience. So, that certainly does make sense. The other reasons that they share is the ability that they know that nursing is so varied in terms of the profession, and that they can choose like any number of settings to work in. And that has been listed as a reason. And I think lastly would be that they have a family member that's a nurse, and that has been a source of inspiration as well.
Nursing is a wonderful profession in the fact that, as Jackie mentioned, there's so many different settings that a person could be employed in. And it's one of those unique professions that, if you are in a particular setting and you wish to change your setting and go elsewhere, you don't have to go back to school to do so. You're still a nurse, and just a nurse in a different environment. So that's very attractive. The diversity of the profession allows you to move around without actually having to go back to university.
I know when we do open houses and talk about the various roles of a nurse, and talk about, oil rigs have nurses, a flight has nurses, there are occupational health nurses and school nurses in some province. There's just so many places, and you just see the students think, oh, never thought of that, because they see a nurse sick hospital. They forget there's that whole different aspect of nursing where they promote health, and they become family nurses, and they look at population health and community health and so many places, and they really don't think about that, because traditionally and unfortunately our mainstream media portrays nurses in hospitals. Well, they're in a whole lot of other places besides hospitals.
And I share a little video clip that I did find online. YouTube, you gotta love YouTube.
Wonderful thing.
Yeah, it truly is. And it talks about nursing, but it also talks about the role of nursing in the future of nursing, and talks about potential nurses being on future space flights when we're exploring, future planets. So I'm sure that there will be a nurse on board. I have no doubt.
Yeah, as much as technology has been around and improving, they can't replace the nurse.
I would agree with you there. I think that, the bedside manner, human touch aspect of it is not something you're going to get from AI. So once you graduate, you're in your setting, you've got your letters behind your name and so on. What's the ongoing maintenance like? Is there an ongoing education component? Is there a minimum hour component? And then, we've heard a lot in the last little while about nurse practitioners. So how did that evolve, and where does that fit in the hierarchy of things?
Well, to maintain your license, you do have to accumulate a certain number of hours. So that's important, and nurses certainly do know that upon registration. So that is key. But, certainly if somebody wanted to work in a specialty area, they may have to take an additional course to work in that particular setting. But usually that's on-the-job kind of learning that would happen for that particular nurse. And again, if a nurse wanted to enter, for example, education, they would have to advance their education and get a master's or a doctorate degree. But with every, position that a nurse might be employed in, we have a responsibility to stay current. And with that responsibility, like we have a code of ethics and standards of practice that we must abide by in order to maintain our license. And part of that is to stay current, to stay as active learners. We always say to students, you may have finished your university education, but learning never stops because the healthcare system is always evolving. So we have to stay with the times.
Absolutely. So they know as a student in our program that it is lifelong learning. It is just inherent in them that they recognize that.
And I think we role model that. I mean, we've been nurses for 40 years, but there are still times, and we're quite comfortable in the classroom when, we might be talking about something on the horizon, and the student will ask questions, and we'll say, we're not quite sure because it's not here yet, but let's Google it, let's learn it together. So they see that. As well as our Nova Scotia College of Nurses, which is our provincial licensing body, requires every registered nurse to complete a continuing competency plan on an annual basis. So those plans are done, they randomly select, and you get an email like submit your plan. So there's certainly that as well. I'm going to loop back to your NP question. So after a student completes our program, and we've had several students complete our program and go on to become nurse practitioners. In fact, 2 of those students are now faculty here. So they did their entry-level nursing education here at our campus. They practiced for a few years. They went and did their master's to become a nurse practitioner, and they're now faculty. So our faculty is diverse. We have actually 3 nurse practitioners, all at the master's level. We have a family practice nurse that is at the master's level, which is a fairly new role to Nova Scotia, so we're really thrilled to have that person on board. And then we don't offer an NP here, but Dalhousie does offer a nurse practitioner program. And I'm not sure if you heard of 2 years, maybe 3 years ago now, again, Nova Scotia Health has a Grow Your Own Nurse Practitioner program where they sponsored current registered nurses in the system to go back to Dalhousie or another university and complete their nurse practitioners program in exchange for 2 or 3 years of practice in a rural area, again, in Nova Scotia. So it's a master's level preparation, and they can do, most do family all ages, but you can be specific and do like neonatal nurse practitioner, for example. So certainly a role for them, and we have seen several of our students become nurse practitioners. One of our students did their undergraduate degree here and then went on to become a physician in the area, who is very cognizant of the nurse's role, as this person was able to practice nursing as a registered nurse while in med school. And we've just had our second student admitted to med school that did their BSc in here, so we're pretty happy about that too.
So we're going to take a break right there. Tune in next week for part 2 of our conversation with the Yarmouth Dal School of Nursing.
I'm Gary Nickerson,
And I'm Quinn Taggart.
and this has been Outside My Window.